Welcome to 6 Gun Guitars Luthier Lessons video series. This one we're going to be doing a little bit more about technique than about actually building something. What I wanted to discuss today is scraper blades, cabinet scrapers, how to use them, how to sharpen them, how to keep the edges clean. They just look like this. Get them in a bunch of different shapes, a bunch of different packaging. You can usually get a set of about 4 or 5 of them for about 20 bucks from a place like Woodcraft, a place online. It's hard to find these things at like a Home Depot or Lowe's. So you kind of have to go to a more fine woodworking store. They also sell some of these guys too, which are by Baco. They're a little bit thicker. They kind of come in their own carbon. The thin stuff works too. I actually use the thin one more than anything else. But what we're going to do is show you how to take the edge and get it true and square, so that way you can start with a really nice good edge for drawing out a burr. Show you how to draw out the burr, show you how to turn the hook on it. That's what actually gives you your cutting surface. And then we'll show you how to use it. The reason I like scrapers more than I like sandpaper is that sandpaper is a grinding process. Sandpaper, you're actually taking those little rocks, basically, if you magnify it, tiny little rocks, and you're crushing the fibers of the wood. You're crushing them down, and little bits are flaking off and falling off, and that's where you get the sand from, the wood dust from the sanding. And you're crushing it, and you're grinding it, and it's not as clean of a surface. That's why you have to go from 80 grit to 150 to 220 to 320 to 400. And it's just a lot of sanding. You're doing the exact same thing to the exact same spot over and over and over again, just to get you down to something smooth enough to put a finish on. With a scraper, because it's an actual microscopic little knife almost that's on the end of that blade, when you come across and you cut the surface of the wood, you're cutting it, when you feel it, I have no way of gauging it, but when you feel it, it feels to me like somewhere around 300 or 400. It's about as smooth as it gets. And it's a one and done kind of thing. You don't have to come across with one scraper to remove the big stuff and one scraper to remove the small stuff and then keep going and going like you have to do with sandpaper. Literally, your one scraper that you got will replace a pile of sandpaper. And I keep my cutoffs in here because a lot of times I can use it for something else really quick and easy. But I use those for a lot of my curved surfaces, like the back of the neck, guitar necks, things like that. Sometimes with a scraper it gets to be a little bit monotonous. I will use it to clean up certain spots, but for anything flat, anything that has a 90-degree corner, around the sides of the guitar even, scraping, binding, and purfling level, all those kind of things, it's literally one and done. You come along with that scraper and you bring it down nice and even, and at that point you have about a 400 grit surface left behind that doesn't require any sanding, and it's a cut versus a grind, so that's how you get that smoothness. And realistically, that's what you want. You don't want to be spending 4 hours sanding the guitar back. You want to get in there with the scraper, spend a half an hour or an hour, true everything up really, really good, and move on to the next step. So what I'm going to do is now we're going to go over to the bench, and I will show you how to square up the edge, burnish the scraper, and then how to use it. The first thing that you need to do when you get your fresh pack of scrapers is the edge here, which is what actually is going to be doing the scraping. The edge here needs to be squared off. Now, right when you buy them, they're probably going to be okay, but it just takes a few seconds to do it. What I've got here is just a regular old metal file, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the scraper on like this, so it's nice and flat. I'm going to work it back and forth to make sure that the edge is perfectly flat. So just work it back and forth, you'll feel it cutting, and then all of a sudden you'll feel it kind of loosen up a little bit. And once it's loosened up, you know that you've got your edge nice and flat here. So then you flip it over, do the same thing with the other side. There, I got that side, looks pretty good. So now I got the two faces, now we need to square the top. So what you do is, I just put it on just like this, kind of visually hold it straight up, and I just run it back and forth. And you can put the file in a holder if you want to, it really doesn't matter, because you're not doing too much with it. But now I can feel that I've got a nice square end to start out with here. It's a little shinier now, you probably can't see that because it's so small. But now what we want to do is go ahead and put the edge on here. Now with a traditional burnisher, it basically looks like a screwdriver without a screwdriver end. It's a piece of very, very hardened steel. You can pick these up for usually around 20 to 30 bucks. I picked up this little burnisher here from Stuart McDonald. I want to say it was about 30 bucks. Things might have changed. I've had this for about 10 years. But it has a piece of hardened steel in here, and it's set in at an angle. And it has a little mouth in here, which is what you use to actually turn your hook. So normally what you would do with your scraper, when you have the edge really nice and set up, is you put it in your vise, and you want to come along again with the burnisher, which is a piece of hardened steel. For this demo, I'm just going to use the back of a ratchet wrench. Sometimes these work, sometimes they don't. They're not going to be as good as a burnisher. So you definitely want to get the right tool. But what you do is you come on the top here, and I'm going to take this hand away so you can see, but you bear down it with some pressure and come across a couple of times, kind of flat, and then you kind of work your way over to about a 10 or 15 degree angle. And what that's going to do, if my hand is the steel, it's going to pull off a really small little curl of steel right off the corner. You can't even see it. But when you rub your hand on it kind of like this, you can feel it kind of like you feel the sharpness on a knife when you run your finger across it. You feel that roughness, kind of. So you come across with your traditional burnisher, down and hard, and you want to turn that hook down at about a 10-degree angle. And I can feel a little bit of a hook here, not very much. And again, because I'm using a wrench instead of a burnisher. The only reason I don't have a real burnisher is because I have this one. So if you pick up a real burnisher, it's a little bit trickier because you got to kind of get that angle right, and it takes a little time. And you kind of, once you get used to doing it, it's pretty easy. But if you are going to buy something for the first time, go to Stuart McDonald and just buy this thing. And the nice thing about this is you lay your card on the table, and using this side that's coming out, you put it on there. You can probably see that. Hopefully, you put it on there, and you bring it across a couple of times. And what this does is it mushes out just a little sliver of steel. It's coming straight out. So you get that on there and you go across. I like to do this a few times. I like to draw out a pretty big burr. And then what you do is you use the mouth on the tool here, which sets your angle. You can see that. You come across once or twice like this, and it actually turns that little hook up. And now, you can kind of hear it. I've got this little bit of a hook on here, and that's what's actually going to do my cutting. So now we'll take you over and actually show you on a piece of wood what the shavings on this looks like, how to hold it, and how to get the best results. So now we've got the scraper dialed in. Got a really good edge on there, and actually I lost it. There it is. So I got a really good edge on there. Normally when I'll burnish these for myself, I'll put a burr on both sides, so that way when the one wipes out I can flip it around and use the other one. But I've got my burr here, and just got a regular old piece of mahogany just to cut off. And what you want to do is you want to come in, and you're going to have to kind of adjust your angle, but you do want to go kind of down and forward to push against the burr when you're pushing it, and down and backward to pull against the burr when you're pulling it. The angle of this is going to be something that you find kind of through experimentation. Depending on the type of angle that you put on the hook when you burnished it, is going to depend kind of on how you got to hold it here. But it really doesn't matter. Sometimes you have to hold it a little further down, a little further up. You're getting the exact same thing out of it. But anyway, I'm going to come across and do a couple of, just a little bit of a bend, make a little bend in it, and go ahead and you give it a push, and it'll remove material. And then just really quickly, and a lot of this is dust, there's a few shavings in here, so I could probably get a little bit sharper burr on here, and you should remove very, very fine curls of wood. But even dust is okay. You can just do a little bit more sharpening. But it's kind of hard to see what I'm removing on here, so I'm going to take a pencil. I'm just going to draw some lines on here, so you can kind of see that. Now we'll come back and show you how fast these go away. 4 cuts and they're gone. It's literally that fast. And the surface that I have on here feels to me like about 320 to 400. It's pretty darn smooth. So if this was regular sandpaper, and you had more to remove than just pencil marks, but you're going to come through with 150, maybe 100 to start, then you go to your 150, then you're going to go to your 220, then you're going to go to your 320, then your 400. You got to do the exact same thing on here 5 different times just to get what this one piece does. So again, just come across. I've got some finish on here. And that finish is gone. And I've got a whole pile of little curls, and now I've got actually a bunch more, so I found a good spot, a good angle. I just must have my angle a little bit wrong. But you'll get some good little curls like this off your scraper. And literally, the piece is done at this point. You can go straight into finishing. So again, scraper blades, they're going to run you about 20 bucks for a set, about 20 to 30 bucks for a burnisher. If you buy the Stuart McDonald burnisher, I think they're, like I said, I think I spent 20 or 30 bucks. I really don't remember. It's been 10 years. But pick it up because it's worth it. Or if you don't get this one, Veritas actually makes a phenomenal burnisher. And it's in a kind of in a cup, and what you do is you vise up your scraper blade, you lay it on top, and you just pull it right over the top. It's a big plastic thing that goes right on with the burnisher up in the top of it, and you just slide it right across. Phenomenal, phenomenal unit. I think it works a little bit better than this one. It's a little bit easier for a first-timer. But again, you can get great results with a scraper, and you really don't have to put in as much effort as you do when you're sanding. And these are cheap scrapers. These are shop box scrapers. So I mean, they're not the world's greatest scrapers. But you can pick up an average set like this, like I said, for about 20 bucks. And unless you lose them, these are the scraper blades that are going to follow you to your grave. I mean, you just don't really wear them down. So again, find your burr, and come along, and you can really remove a lot of material. Ton of material in a very, very short amount of time. You can use it for leveling out your bindings, leveling out your purplings, or scraping the top flush. The only last bit of recommendation that I have is some of these, when you buy them, they have very sharp corners. So sometimes if you're working on something and you tilt to one side, you can be trying to fix this spot, and actually digging a hole right next to it with the corner, it's even worse than what you're trying to fix. So what I do on the ones that I use all the time is I just go over to the belt sander, or you can do it with a just with the same file that we use to square up the edges. Just go ahead and round those edges a little bit. You know, do it on all four sides so you don't have to worry about it. Get those edges rounded and get them out of the way so that when you are coming through, if you do happen to dig a little bit, it's not going to be as detrimental as if you dig a really, really sharp corner into something. You know, you can take the shapes that you have and you can modify them too. Like this used to be just a square scraper, but I rounded off the edge with a file and with the belt sander, so that way if I have something that has a different kind of curvature to it, I can get into that curve kind of based on where I hold the scraper. So they're extraordinarily versatile, definitely worth it. If you have any questions on scrapers at all that I didn't address, I think I got everything, but if I didn't, just send me an email at sixgunguitars@gmail.com. That's just SIXGUNGUITARS, sixgunguitars@gmail.com. And I'll go ahead and answer any questions that you got. Like I said, pick up a set. If you have been using sandpaper this whole time and never thought about these, they're worth every last penny. And you'll never buy sandpaper again, too, so they pay you back kind of over time.